Hey, Gary, two things. One, I wonder if you could speak to what benefits you've seen to other species beyond red snapper. And then two, what's kind of the average cost per deployment to deploy the material?
You know, I didn't even talk about turtles. Our little area has, exists in our little area, all 5 of the Texas turtle species, all of whom are threatened or endangered, including the Kemp's Ridley turtle, which is the most threatened and endangered turtle in the world. And one of Dr. Klein's graduate students, Ms. Lara, put out some camera traps, and when it wasn't murky and when the turtles didn't knock the camera traps over, we got pictures of quite a few Kemp's Ridley's turtles foraging, looked to me like really urgently in the reef. Now, Kemp's Ridley's turtles, their favorite food is a little bitty crab. And so when we put down nursery reef, we can also, we do the bottom of the food chain. Every single fish that hangs out on the continental shelf, all of them evolved to do best in the presence of hard substrate reef and good complex habitat. That's why they're there all the time. I mean, you can wander around all over the Gulf of Mexico, you control lures all day long. You don't see a fish, you don't catch a fish, you go to an artificial reef, and that's where the turtles are, that's where the apex predators are, that's where everything is. So when we restore that lost low relief reef, we replace the bottom of the food chain. The turtle gig is so weird though. You know, I've been trying to figure out how we can ring that endangered species bell and cough some money out of it. But a lot of the turtle folks are very much focused on the 2 days that a turtle is on the dirt and their the things that they have made to help the turtles during the 2 days that they're on the dirt, but they're kind of blind about the other 15 years that these fish are out in the Gulf of Mexico. And turtle nest numbers, they're trying to get 25,000 Kemp's Ridley's turtle nests, and numbers went up, and about 5 years ago they plateaued, and some of the turtle biologists are beginning to posit that turtles are habitat limited, like gee whiz everything else in the world, but the turtle people aren't there yet, and I'm hoping to change their minds. What does it cost? About $50, $60 a ton to put to material in our reef. We're very efficient. Texas Parks and Wildlife and the GLO put 750 tons of prefabricated reefing pyramids in our reef. That was all those little yellow spots that were in the west part of the reef. They spent $800,000 doing it. That was in 2018. 800 grand. God, wouldn't they just give me that money? They put 750 tons of material down. I was just looking at our audited financial statements. We put down 7,000 tons of material for $428,000. And Parks and Wildlife is right now starting to contract us to build reefs for them. And that's a way we can take those contracts, do the job, and then take the profit and put it into our reef. So that's another way for us to raise funds and get the job done.
Megan, that's a terrific program that you described that Southwest Airlines is doing. Is perhaps Southwest Airlines applying that thinking to every category of waste they have, or they're trying to push maybe towards that pie in the sky of zero waste besides the fuel they consume?
I don't know if I would say every product, but we are looking at, I mentioned earlier, we have sort of a cross-functional citizenship initiative across the company, and one of those pillars is aircraft and business operations. There's multiple implementation teams underneath there, so looking at everything from onboard recycling, just this repurposing program, so all the different aspects of our operation. We're still tackling this problem. We've got work to do still here, but I do think that they are looking at other initiatives. We recycle a ton of material every year. I wish I had the stat in front of me every year. So there are other initiatives like that taking place. We recycle the six-pack rings that come off the sodas that we stock the aircraft with. It's other sustainability initiatives too, using power on the ground at the gates for our tugs. Building our buildings in a more green LEED fashion. So there are lots of other initiatives, but this particular implementation, I think if we can figure this out, we have the potential to start thinking about other things in our supply chain.
Hello, Maria Dunn with Phillips 66. Thank you all so much for your program and your sharing your programs today. I have two questions. Are you connected at all with the New Orleans area that I know has a lot of Oyster Reef recycling shells? Maybe they give you ideas on how to get into the Houston markets. And then Gary, what does success look like for RGV? Is it a never-ending project, or is there a level of redevelopment of the artificial reef that then is continued complete?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, we've got a partner organization, Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana, that runs their recycling programs there in both Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Over the years, we've bounced ideas off them. Their program's a little different. They do theirs on a larger scale. They use vendors, recycle vendors, to do their collections as opposed to us providing the staff. It's a lot more expensive program because of that. Their restaurants do pay a fee for that service, something we're considering once we have to expand into Houston. We've kind of discussed that over the years internally, and we've avoided going that route just yet because we like the idea of having that close relationship to our restaurants. Having a staff member go to the restaurant at least 3 times a week really gives the restaurant an easy way to come to us with any concerns or any opportunities. Sure, they can get on the phone or call, but if there's somebody there they know, hey, at 10 in the morning, I know Shannon's gonna be there, let me just go outside and say, hey, I need more bins, as simple as that. Or, we want to produce more outreach material for the restaurant, or can you come talk to our staff and kind of explain the program? And we like that opportunity to reach out directly to the restaurants. So while we do collaborate a lot with other recycling organizations around the country, there are a lot of differences that we've kind of internally decided, which way to go.
Thank you. And Gary, what does success look like?
We'll quit putting material in RGV Reef when the marginal utility of additional material put down starts to reach zero. Most reefs are permitted too small and they've got their material jammed in too close together. I think that 5 more years at about $750,000 a year will do it. I'm not sure, but that's what I think. The city of South Padre Island, we keep pestering them for money and they keep asking the same question. When are you gonna go away? When are you gonna be done? There is no, what we're doing, there's no black book with yellow stripes that's, graduated stepping stone reef building for dummies. And so, we're kind of making this up as we go along with the help of our biologists and with the leavening of the experience of old salts. Not a very good answer, I suspect, but that's the best I've got.
Any other questions? Are you getting to someone, Jenny? Thanks.
Michael, on the mesh that you use to contain the oyster shells, have y'all had any unintended consequences with that, or will you continue to use that method?
We're continuing to use it until we have a better option. Now, yes, it is a petroleum-based material. It's an aquaculture mesh used. We buy it from a company on the East Coast. It's used very commonly in aquaculture, especially along the East Coast. But at the end of the day, it is a plastic product. And kind of our biggest negative that we seem to get from the public when we do these reefs, is, hey, you're putting plastic back in. Our goal with doing this, and a lot of programs around the country do it, is that these reefs will be completely encrusted by oysters, and so before they get a chance to break down, they'll kind of be fully encased. Texas, sun, weather tends to break things down a lot faster. So that's kind of one of our big goals with a partnership with Texan at Galveston, is they're researching other materials and methods. They currently have a grad student out doing some work right now. They're looking at things like repurposing old shrimp nets after the shrimpers have finally done with them. They've tied them and repaired them enough. They tend to get rid of them. Well, can we, use that with that opportunity to build reef using that instead? And they're putting together some other methods and materials. Right now, the cost efficiency of that material is kind of fits our program, but we're definitely looking for ways to kind of transition away from that.
Hello, this is for Gary. How do you protect the how do you protect the reefs from shrimp trawlers? And do you ever host diving trips?
The way you protect the reef from shrimp trawls is you put 200-ton piles of railroad ties along the boundary. And there are several different operators that go out to RGV Reef. There's 2 or 3 headboats that hit it pretty hard, pretty regularly, and that's part of the economic impact, the immediate economic impact. But there's ways to get out there. Be nice to me and we'll take you.
Yes, is there any research that you've done to determine if there's a way to build oyster reefs with something other than oysters?
Yeah, even in Galveston Bay Foundation and projects around the country, there's lots of different methods for using. You can use concrete, you can use stone, things of that nature. And we do use material like that in other aspects. Anytime you're building something in the water, it can become an oyster reef if you have oysters. We like the idea of using oyster shell. There is some research done that there's a slight percentage that oysters do tend to prefer attaching to oyster shells. It's the same material, so when they cement themselves on, it seems a little easier. And it's a product that was going to be thrown away, so we decided that it would be beneficial to grab it. But there's lots of ways to build reef, and different groups and even different programs of ours uses different materials.
Michael's on the right track. I'm astounded that nobody's not very busily putting hard substrate reef in those parts of the bays that don't have grass on them, because they desperately need it. Everything there, just like offshore, almost everything there does better in the presence of hard substrate reef.
We have one more question from Tina.
That's fine. So I wanted to say thank you to all of y'all. This has been a wonderful panel. Specifically with Southwest, I fly all the time, so I really appreciate your customer service. Do you have one piece of advice for companies such as yourself that is a service-based company that may have not considered, well, what is their role in conserving our natural resources? How do you get a company as big as Southwest to consider that that's a very important role within their bottom line?
So that's a great question. Thank you. I'll admit we're really blessed that we have great leadership that always we were a company founded on doing the right thing, just as simple as living by the golden rule. So that just permeates into everything we do. And when this came up, we had leaders identify this is a problem, and we can't redesign this whole fleet and then kind of hide in the dark that we've been putting the leather's just disappearing somewhere. No, it's acres and acres, football fields worth of leather. So it was that support, I think, that got us off the ground, that we had the support, particularly in our supply chain department, that they helped. I mean, there's cost and expense to doing this. Not on the outreach side, of course, we're funding grants and partnerships to support the use of the leather, but there's also cost of shipping and storage. We ebb and flow with when the nonprofits can take leather, so sometimes we have to pay to store it for a little bit, for a while here in Dallas, until we can find someone to take a truckload. So having that leadership, I think it's the only other advice I would say from our working side, down here actually implementing the work, is just getting the right people at the table. So you've got to find the right people who are interested in being a part of the solution, and also speaking the language. At Southwest, I've been there almost 20 years. One thing we've always thought about is that we feel like owners of the company. We have profit sharing, we have stock, and so we always talk about everything being low cost. We're the low fare airline, we're always saving costs, we're always being more efficient. When you start to translate that language of low cost, efficiency, profit sharing, but that's also the language of conservation, right? Being more efficient, using the resources you have. How can we do things quicker, faster, smarter, less expensively? That, I think when we started using that language, that helps get people to the table, because that's the Southwest culture. So they understand that, and it gets them more engaged.
Thank you so much. Please join me in once again thanking our speakers for this incredible panel.